The next thing that you might ask is, well, that's all fine and good, but there's probably been some amendments. 30 years have gone by. What amendments have occurred? Well, our research team has studied the amendments as well. In fact, it has been said that the original Social Security Act was 12 pages long, and today, if you were to take the paperwork of all the amendments of the Social Security Act, it would reach from here to the moon. So yes, there has been amendments. We've studied the specific Title 4D amendments going all the way back to 1974. I've tried to summarize some of them here for you today. In 1984, there were many changes in the Child Support Amendment. And one of the things that is causing confusion with what these amendments is this kind of statement here in red, that this amendment changed things. The federal government tried to change things so that the demand for equal services, so that the demand for equal services for welfare and non-welfare could be fulfilled. Okay, but what the Minnesota DHS is coming back and saying is, well, in 1984, the federal government made us provide these services to everybody, welfare and non-welfare. They changed the laws in 1984, is what the Minnesota DHS is claiming in individual sessions with you and others. Well, our research team has done the research. We've looked through the entire legislative history with all of the federal documents to figure out what was intended and what was meant. Well, it's clear on the record that the record is filled with these kinds of comments here, as from Senator Dole, that the purpose of this 1984 amendment was to place new strong emphasis on the non-welfare caseload, because when child support payments are missed or never received, that can make the difference between remaining independent of welfare or being forced back onto public assistance. So you see how he was really referring to the at-risk group. And if you pour through the legislative history, you'll find these kinds of comments over and over and over again. There's nothing in the 1984 amendments that show that they expanded the class to include every child in the universe. Another one of our own favorite Minnesota senators, Dave Durnberger, is also on the record, and he has a similar comment. In his statements, he talks about the same thing, how women who are divorced or have had out-of-wedlock children, they cannot find work. And especially those that have been married for a while and been stay-at-home moms, that they'll be forced to public assistance if we don't help them continue to get these support payments. They'll fall on welfare again, and we don't want them to fall on welfare again. We want to decrease that dependency. I've spoke with Senator Dave Durnberger, and he supports our research and our interpretation of what has happened all along the way. So hopefully that will give you an idea of what really happened in 1984 without getting into too many details. There's lots more details I could talk about. So then we continue with the amendments. In 1996 is when Clinton came out with the Welfare Reform Act, also known as the Personal Responsibility and Work Opportunity Reconciliation Act. They mean the same thing. If you see them, they're interchangeable. In 1996, people that I've talked to have said, as I've talked about the evolution of the 4D program, they've said, well, Clinton changed everything in 1996. Didn't you know that? Well, we've done the research. Our research team went through, again, the legislative record to see, did anything happen in 1996 that made the 4D program required to be applied to everybody in the universe? Well, in testimony in April of 2003 in front of the House Human Services Policy Committee, a representative from the DHS, who's no longer there, said Congress made it abundantly clear in 1996 Welfare Reform Act that 4D services had to be provided for any individual who applies for application. That was the DHS testimony in a hearing in this room, maybe even. However, we've done the research and we're not able to find it, and they have not been able to provide exactly what that is. We have found instead that in 1996, Clinton's whole purpose was time-limited assistance and increasing individual responsibility. One of the things that we found as we've poured through the amendments from 1996 is just more information to support our position. For example, this is a section of the public law that's been changed and modified. What they did is there was so much confusion on what do you mean by dependent child. Do you mean dependent child dependent on the government, or do you mean dependent child under 18? So here in 1996 law, they clarified it, and by striking the phrase who is dependent child and adding with respect to whom assistance is being provided. So under 4A, which as I said is the MFIP, TANF, and those such programs. So we can't find it where anything changed in 1996. And believe me, we've dug and dug to try to get the research.